There's no denying that talking about race can often become heated, divisive, and downright uncomfortable. The Living Undivided show, hosted by Chuck Mingo, exists to be a place where conversations on race are approached with grace and empathy. Chuck is the founder and CEO of Courageous Love, a racial healing, solidarity, and justice movement launched in 2015. Through the movement, thousands of participants have been catalyzed into action. Each week on the show, Chuck introduces the audience to a guest who is a change agent, reaching across racial lines and working toward racial healing. These stories are examples of the grace, boldness, and courageous love necessary to bridge the divide in our country. This is Living Undivided.
Hey, I'm Chuck Mingo with Living Undivided. I'm here with actually my brother and my co-founder, Troy Jackson, who's also part of the Living Undivided team, and also Dave Ferguson, who is pastor of Community Christian Church, also a visionary leader for New Thing Network and the Exponential Conference. So, Dave, you've got a lot of things going on. But this is fun because you two have such a great history with each other. And honestly, it's the blessing of my life to get to be your friend, Dave, because of your friendship through Troy. So talk about how the two of you met. Why don't we just start there?
Go for it.
Yeah, 35 years ago, we were on a mission trip, like a 2-week mission trip to Haiti.
So you're like how old?
I was 17.
And I'm probably 22?
Yeah, 22 or 23.
Okay, something like that.
And so we connected.
Why did your mom trust me with you?
My sister was there too.
She was, that's
and
right.
she's 2 years younger, so I don't know what they were
Because I was in charge, kind of.
Were you? I didn't know that. So
Well,
that was what was going on behind the scenes.
anyway.
So, but it is interesting that we met in Haiti, and it was, I think, your first time in Haiti, my first time out of the United States, my first time on a plane was going there.
Wow.
And it was a real reckoning with intense poverty. Race plays a big part of Haiti. I didn't understand all that at the time.
No.
But I remember you both being really fun, but asking the kind of questions I thought needed to be asked and how we were wrestling with it. And somehow, you know, from there, I think you invited me to a concert.
Not just any concert, though. What was the group?
Well, when we got back to the States, we kind of hit it off. And I think you came up to hang out with, because I was a youth pastor, our youth group. Yeah, so we went and saw Kool and the Gang.
Kool and the Gang.
You got no problem with that, do you, Chuck?
I love Kool and the Gang.
All right,
I'm
well,
a big Kool and the Gang fan, absolutely.
Are they still alive?
I'm guessing most are. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
But anyway, kind of our friendship got forged both in Haiti and then that trip up to Chicago.
And then the thing too that, and I think about this a lot for the work that Chuck and I and Brittany and Courtney and our Undivided team have been called into, is the intentionality you have about leadership and the purpose you have on your life and the call on your life. So the next time I ran into you was out of the blue. We were going to different parts of the world, but you said, hey, we're getting ready to start this church in suburban Chicago, and why don't you come up and do an internship? And there's very few people
Which turned into 3 internships.
3 internships. And I wanted Community Christian to name the internship like the Troy Jackson Intern of the Year Award. And we're working on that still. But
you know what? For a donation from Undivided, we could probably make that happen.
But what I do appreciate is the stretching and challenge you, every time we're together, that you call me to be a better leader. And to think about reproduction, to think about how do we reproduce what we're trying to do. Actually, both of you are some of the best at asking questions about what you care about that I've ever been around. Just insatiable curiosity. And I need to do more of that. So it's maybe two reasons I'm attracted to two of you is that quest for knowledge. But I feel like we've had a iron sharpen iron because I have a lot more of a prophetic bent. And so,
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if this is true for you, Chuck, but I mean, for me, Troy has been probably the one person when I've had any questions around issues of justice or race or all those topics, I'm going, because I mean, you can only know so many things, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know, so I'm going like, all right, what's Troy? And I'll get Troy on the phone or, on a Zoom call, whatever, I'm going like, hey, tell me what I think about this.
Yeah.
And he'll kind of coach me up. And in the process of coaching me up, also usually kind of like,
jab you a little bit.
oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. And pushes me.
Yeah.
Pushes me. And so I never thought of it this way, but there is a little bit of kind of an apostolic, prophetic kind of relationship, really, very much so.
Well, take us back to last year. I mean, I'm sure that, those conversations picked up again with each other last year. So can you remember maybe one of the calls you made, vice versa, that was really around just processing all that was going on in our country racially as we all walked through Breonna Taylor, then, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd happening?
Well, I think we had a call with Alvin Herring and the two of us in the summer, but it was probably June or July of last summer. And you and I had talked a little bit, I don't remember, I know we had probably several phone calls after the murder of George Floyd, but you were saying, hey, even at Exponential, like we're in the middle of a pandemic, we do like, a dozen regionals now every fall, or 8 to
10 of them.
10 regionals around the country. We're shutting those down,
right.
And we're doing like 100 roundtables. And we feel like we need to do something on race.
We've been really intentional at Exponential. I mean, our call is about multiplication. It's about movement making. It's about church planting, and that's our lane, and we stay with that lane. Mm-hmm. And for Todd and I, this is the first time we ever kind of diverted from that lane. We said, you know what? This is so important. We feel like we need to take these 100 roundtables, and instead of it really being just about church planting, just about multiplication, movement making, because this is pertinent to that, we got to address this topic of race. Mm-hmm. And well, part of it. So Todd and I are both apostolic, futuristic, action-oriented, and so yeah, let's do it. And so we just turned the thing this direction, and we're doing it. And we got speakers. Actually, I was sitting in this exact place. I think I'd already done the interview with Albert Tate.
Okay, yeah.
So that was already done because Albert was going to co-facilitate it with me, and we had everything packaged up, ready to go. And basically, I think Todd and I had the realization going like, oh my gosh, this is a really volatile topic. We're going to bring lots of people together, and we have no idea. Actually, we know we ought to talk about it. We have no idea how to talk about it. So that's when I know I got you on the phone and Chuck, and going like, hey, we need someone to help us facilitate this conversation because we'll get the people in the room and we got all the content, but this could be a disaster. And actually, we had one very thoughtful mentor of ours tell us, going like, this moving in this direction, this could implode Exponential. Yeah. And so we got a hold of you, and go ahead, you can tell them the rest of the story.
Yeah, well, Chuck, you and I did some videos. We helped prepare the roundtable questions,
right.
And so that was a way to partner with you all and bless you all and support what you were doing. We did do 2 takes of the video, Chuck, is that right?
We did. So part of the story is, so we were in DC, and it's, first of all, God bless him. So Troy did this like walk the walk. He walks 113 miles?
It was over 120 miles.
Over 120 miles from Charlottesville to DC to be a part of the commitment march.
Right.
But the guy didn't bring any pants. So he's just got shorts.
Like cargo shorts.
Cargo shorts. And so we film all this content for you, Dave.
Wait, who else was wearing shorts?
I'm trying to think.
You were.
I was wearing shorts too. That's right. I was wearing shorts too.
Yeah.
I was wearing shorts too. So we film all this content, and then we have like a quality question, because we're about excellence. You know that. Undivided, we're about excellence.
You guys do a good job.
And the quality was really around like, should we be in shorts? Talking to pastors at 100
and I've seen
roundtables.
Troy's legs. That's not good.
Well,
That's not
and
a good
he
thing.
had on shorts. So let's just be clear. So
long legs.
I wasn't even sure it was
Larry
like,
Bird short.
we might have offended some people too. So we were like, we literally did. We had to come back and refilm all the content.
Oh,
and
wow.
So Troy actually got a new nickname out of that, which you may not know about, but
No.
we now call him the Tastemaker.
Tastemaker.
Yes, Troy is the Tastemaker, because what we realized is, maybe we were behind the curve, and maybe the way that you now do communicate to people is in short shorts. And Troy was just ahead of the curve, and so so we had to pull him back to reality. And so
the 80s are coming back.
The 80s are coming back. But I remember that very clearly, because we just we were committed to you, we were committed to the work that you were doing and to the courageous step that you were taking, and it was an honor to be a part of that.
Well, and then I think as we were gearing up, and we did a massive investment in new video assets for Undivided. And we were trying to say, who's going to go first?
Yeah.
And that's always a big thing with a new program going national. Who's going to go first?
Yeah.
And I think I pretty much, I did one of my pokes and pins of like, Dave, will you and your small group go through this. And I think, and you said, let me check with Eddie.
Yeah.
But I followed up the next week, and you were brave enough, because you hadn't seen any of the content.
Right.
But we had
Yeah.
25 years of friendship.
Yeah. But you stepped in and said yes, and we need desperately pastors and church leaders, and particularly white pastors, to take the risk and take the step that you took to bring your small group in, and then you added to it. And we had a great dinner at your place. You and Sue hosted last night with that cohort.
Yeah.
The warmth. Some of those people, by the way, go to Community Christian, but they didn't know each other.
Oh, no.
Right.
And so there's
I didn't know some of them.
There's this bonded community
really
that
is special.
is beautiful. And I think that's possible in churches around the country. And so we appreciate your courage. And I know the relationship helps, but to go first, and with, president of Exponential, visionary leader of New Thing, lead pastor of Community Christian Church, podcast, book. I think your book came out, Bless came out, and you're writing articles for Harvard Business Review. For you to give and invest 12 hours over 6 weeks, you didn't miss a week, you were there early, you stayed late, and to do all the work around it, it's rare to find someone with the demands on their time that you have to say, I need to do this, my church needs this so bad, that the 2 hours, we find time for what's important to us. So
Yeah,
I
we do.
appreciate that you did that. So I wonder if you could just reflect on,
Yeah.
why did you decide to
Well, first of all, you're making me sound better than, so thank you for that. But I think it does illustrate how important this topic is.
Yeah.
I mean, and candidly, probably I'm going like, you know what? Troy's got a pretty good batting average. I'll take a risk. And it was not only a good experience, it was better than I thought it would be. And here's my insight. Troy probably knows, and again, I'm not an expert, but from my vantage point, knows as much about this topic, especially when you talk about American history and those kinds of things and civil rights and all this stuff, as anybody I know. So on the one hand, it's this great combination to me of someone who really is an exceptional thought leader.
Absolutely. World-class.
Coupled with a great communicator who comes from a very large church, who knows how to present things in an outstanding fashion. The part that I knew we get great content from you. I was really impressed on the quality of like the videos, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was really proud of all that. It made me feel great to be a part of it. And it was, probably in the back of my head, I'm going, I'll do this once and we'll see. What do you got? But the experience was so good, I was going, no, now we want to continue to do it again and again. And I would encourage all of you that are listening in, try it once, do it like me, see what you think. I think you're going to be impressed with the experience that your community of people have, and also the quality of the product. And if it proves itself to be as good as I'm saying it is, you'll want to continue to do it again. And I think, again, go back to what's most important. This theme, this topic is that important to the church. Yeah. That important, and God's dream. Yeah. And God's dream.
Yeah. Restoring God's dream.
That's right.
Yeah. Love it. Just final thoughts, reflections from the two of you, because you said something, Troy, and I want to go back to it. We make time for what's important. And someone said this, I got insight to a meeting that had happened, and there were a bunch of leaders in the church that were at this meeting, and a lot of them were white leaders, and they were exhausted. Like, they were just really challenged by this topic of race and what the year had been. And someone in that meeting who was black stood up and said, guys, what's been a chapter in your life has been a book for me. And so what would you say to white leaders in particular, white pastors, influencers in particular, who I know are feeling like, this is weighty, it's hard, I may not feel like an expert, but what would be your encouragement to them to continue to lean into this space?
I'll go first. I think about Paul's words to Timothy, that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and self-control. And the avoidance of leading well on race by pastors and churches is largely rooted in fear. And that fear is when we're not listening to God and God's dream and restoring God's dream. And instead, we have power and authority as followers of Jesus. And God's race is not such a big challenge that God can't handle it. And nothing is too difficult for God and the Holy Spirit. So lean in with power and love and with discipline. Because this is not a place to move into without deep love for God and for others who are like you and different than you. And that there's power in that. And enter into it with discipline and self-control, which is one of the reasons I think partnering with Undivided is a good strategy, because you don't want to lead in this place without counting the cost and figure out how to do it in a disciplined way. So that would be my word.
That's good.
It's interesting it's interesting you bring that verse up, because that's probably one of two verses this last year that I've continually prayed over and over. The other one was James 1:5, which is like, give me wisdom because it's chaos.
Yeah, right.
But the other one was that one about, I don't want to have a spirit of fear. And we actually this last year, kind of our slogan was, where fear sees a crisis, faith sees opportunity. And I think this is an opportunity. What I would say is I would just remind pastors of one thing and then maybe challenge them with this other. And remember why you got in this. I mean, we didn't get into this to play it safe. We got into this because we wanted to see God's will expressed through a community of people. Yeah. And this is so clearly God's will. And so, I mean, if that resonates, if it's fear that's holding you back, I mean, you got, what are we going to get? 65, 75, 85, 95 years on the planet. I mean, and then it's done. So don't hold back because of fear. So remember why you got into this thing, and go back to the courageous moment you said, no, I want to pastor a church. I want to plant a church. I want to lead a church. And why? But the second thing I'd say too is you want to be on the right side of history. And someday, Revelation 7:9 says, every tongue, tribe, and nation, this is where, I mean, talk about long-term, this is where we're headed. Yeah. So let's get on the right side of history, and let's move the church much more towards that Revelation kind of dream.
I am so thankful for the two of you. I'm thankful for friendship, relationship, and just the way that you share your history together. God knew what he was doing when he brought the two of you together in Haiti, of all places. And we all get to benefit from that even today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Dave.
This episode of Living Undivided is brought to you by Courageous Love, a movement on a mission to unite and ignite people toward racial justice. The show is produced in Cincinnati, Ohio. You can learn more about our host, Chuck Mingo, and the movement by visiting www.chuckmingo.com.